Hey everyone, my name is Tegan and welcome back to Tandy Writes. Today we're going to be talking about, oh my god, my face is shiny. Today we're going to be talking about How About It's High by Melinda Salisbury. I want to say Salisbury because I think she's British, but I also want to pronounce it how I spell it, which is Salisbury. We're going to go Salisbury. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but also I don't care. I don't have a physical copy of this book to show you. I got this book because the ebook was 83p on Amazon and I cannot resist the bargain, especially because it has such a pretty cover as well. I see pretty cover, I see less than £1 for a book. Buy it. And also I think it came out, at the time of reading it, I think it came out quite recently. So why is it 83p? So I went into this book blind because the blurb also does not tell you like anything at all about the story unless they've updated it. It focuses more, like it tells you what happens in the first chapter, first half a chapter, but as the entire book, no, nothing. You go in blind. But also it turned out to be my favourite book of the year so far, and it's probably in my top favourite books of all time. It's the kind of thing I'd have to reread at some point with a more critical perspective, but as a first read, it was incredible. And originally I thought I read it in 2 days. Then I looked at my Goodreads status and I read it in 1 day. And I think it's quite a short book, but I read it so quickly and it's been a week or two since reading it. But by the time I upload this, it'll be a month. But I still can't like wrap my head around what happened, and I still can't just straight up get it out of my head. How About Tide is an incredibly intense novel. It's my first Salisbury book, so I have like no previous knowledge of her work to compare it to. But if they're all like this, like high quality, I'm gonna be like straight up her #1 fan forever. I know she wrote The Senator's Daughter, and I was gonna read that book at some point, but then didn't. So this is my first one of her books. And she knows how to craft an atmosphere that kind of grips you by the throat from the first sentence and just keeps it there the entire time. And like you're still just getting choked out until the last words, and it's intense in that way. The narrative itself is very kind of simple but very quick and exciting. So it's like the perfect way novel to just sink your teeth into. Like it's short but it's got a lot in there. And also I think this will make also a very good film, or at least a Netflix show. Netflix show, but like a chapter per episode. You don't want to like crush it. Yeah. I support my own ideas. Something about the writing style kind of speaks to me a lot. It's very atmospheric and dark and enchanting, and it gives the story a very unique feel in comparison to like other books I've read, like both YA books and books in this genre. It's still very unique in some ways. More, as I said, more like a film than a book in some ways. It's set in a kind of historical, close-knit village in Scotland, but it doesn't really specify a time. So you can kind of guess, I would say maybe in 1800s, maybe early 1900s. I'm not good at history. So it's got a very historical feel to it, and but it's hard to say when to date it exactly. And also the isolation of it being this little village in Scotland in a loch. Like this whole isolation, it adds perfectly to the horror of the plot. Is this book a horror? Maybe. In some ways it's got a lot of horror elements, it's got some thriller elements. But I don't know what genre I would place it under, but do books really need genres anymore? I will read whatever as long as it's pretty and 83p. The story starts off like very slowly, it takes time to build the world and the characters, but it's far from boring. Most of the reveals like throughout the book are built up in a way where you can see them coming, but there's still a shock. And to me that is a gift. And the reveals make the story make sense, especially if you can see them coming, like no matter how strange they are. And that is what really makes this book work so well, in my opinion. I found the main character's role in the story more interesting than her actual character, as well as her relationship with other characters. And she's a very strong-willed female protagonist. I love that, but after reading a lot of those recently, I was less interested in her, but I cared a lot about how she actually interacts like with the surroundings. She and her father live on the mountain far away from the village, and they had to watch over the loch to make sure that the water levels are high. And this is very important. And I can't say anything about spoilers, and I'm trying to go for a spoiler-free review this time. The girl believes her dad to be a murderer, and the book opens, like the first chapter is a few rules she's made for herself that she thinks will keep her alive. My one kind of negative point for the book is that her dad isn't really portrayed to be a murderer or even a violent man. Sometimes he seems like a very genuine, caring father. He comes as overly protective, sometimes even controlling, and he has like a lot of secrets, which gives him this very ominous vibe. But he didn't really come across as a murderer, in my opinion, of course. So there's monsters in this book, which I wasn't expecting, because this was not mentioned in the blurb. But that doesn't matter. I had a good time anyway. And the descriptions of the monsters are what kind of truly took me by surprise. It took a few very small and clever details to complete something that was very terrifying, and it described it in a way that made it feel like if I look up from the book right now, I would see this monster right there. I've seen a lot of reviews describe the monsters as vampires. Like, this has been a lot of people tagging it as a vampire book. And I wouldn't go as far as to say vampire. I think it's accurate in terms of they can like turn a victim with a bite and they're slightly humanoid, but I wouldn't really say vampires. They got some vampire traits, but I would just say monster. Yeah, I like being vague. And the end of this book is something that kind of made the book and the entire story, because it was so fitting. And it's kind of unexpected in some ways, but as I said earlier with the reveals, you kind of see it coming, but it still shocks you. And this is a reveal that made sense, but it was very beautifully heartbreaking, but it's fast and vivid, and it's the kind of ending where you kind of sit and just hold your breath, because like, you know what's going to happen, but you just don't want it to. And it cuts off like in such a... oh, fuck. It cuts off. You're left on the cliffhanger. And in some ways I would want this book to have a sequel just to find out what happens, but also it's a perfect standalone. And the last few chapters of the book are just a very series of like twists and a lot of moments that kind of make you gasp out loud. I'm just sat there on my phone reading this little tiny ebook just going, like, scandalous. And yeah, that's the entire last chapter. That isn't just the ending. Like, this entire second half of the book, just unreal. Chef's kiss. That was a terrible chef's kiss. And on Goodreads I gave this book a full 5 out of 5 stars. I'd say probably 4.5, but I gave it a full 5 out of 5. But this book is incredible. And also, that's all I have to say about that. If you've read this book as well, please just leave a comment and tell me what you thought about it. But also, it is 83p. It's like under £1. It might be $1 on like US Amazon or Kindle, whatever. Like, get this book. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time with probably a lot less enthusiastic good review. See you, bye.